Good morning, everybody. This is James Morris. It's Tuesday morning's edition of Ask the Master Auto Technician. People ask me all the time about why cars leak on the interior. You know, I've got a leak and I can't figure out where it is. The first question I ask is, do you have a sunroof? And the answer is yes, but it's not leaking. The sunroof is down in the floor. That's where my leak is. It's in the floor. I got it coming from a dash from a window. And I go, well, I know it looks like it's coming from the window, but it's a strong possibility it is the sunroof that's causing the problem. What I've seen over the years is the sunroof tubes, you have one on the right and you have one on the left. They run down from the top, run down along the windshield pillar, the hose of windshield, and they go down and come out by the wheels, by the rear of the front wheels. They get clogged up with all sorts of stuff. Dirt dauber nests inside there, mud, leaves, algae, debris, you name it, they get stuck in there, and it stops the flow. So to find out if this is your problem, it's not hard at all to do. I'm writing about it in this Sunday's paper, and ask the auto advisor, is how to take it. Just get a gallon of water, open your sunroof up, stand on the edge, you open the doors up, stand on the edge, look down inside it. You'll see there's a hole in the right corner and in the left corner. Just add about a cup of water, not much, just about that gallon of water, just add about a cup and see if it goes down. It should go down, that means it's working, and then see where the water goes. It should go on the ground. But if it doesn't go on the ground, and you start seeing it dripping inside on your carport and on your carpet, you know you found the area. In order to fix it, you're more than likely going to have to. The easiest thing is to, if it's leaking inside, is to take the headliner down, part of it down. You don't have to take the whole headliner down. Just take part of it down and look. And a lot of times you'll see where the line has become disconnected. And because the line is too short when it was made at the factory. Lots of cars, a lot of General Motors cars, they put them together and they were about this much too short. And and over a period of time the plastic shrinks and it pulls out. That's what ends up happening, the rubber and plastic hoses they put together. And it's about a ½ inch too short, and the repair procedures go in there and add a little bit of line to it. That's not a big job, but that's what you have to do. But it's still irritating and it's still aggravating when you have this problem and you can't figure out where it is. But that's what you do. Just take the sunroof, see what happens. And if you don't see anything dripping, inside your car, but the water just stays there, the problem may be the fact that the hose is clogged up and you may need to just blow it out. A lot of times you can just gently blow the hose out in the trash, and if it runs on the ground, then you've got the problem fixed. But I've seen them get clogged up where they won't allow the water to drain, so the water sits there on top of the roof sloshing back and forth. When you slam on brakes, it goes forward, runs down, and literally runs down along the pillars inside there, along the windshield pillars, and come down and leaks on the floor. You'll see it leak on the side of your, right where the dash goes together. You'll see that. Water will come down and get on the dash, and you won't even see any leaks from the sunroof. And everybody says, well, I don't think it's my sunroof leaking because it's not leaking from above. Well, they're designed not to leak if they slosh over, not to leak on you, but to run down and to leak on the floor. That's what ends up happening. So if you have a leak inside your car, the most important thing I can tell you if you have a leak inside your car is make sure that the drain tubes are clear on both left and right side of your sunroof. If you have a sunroof, 99% of the time, if you have a leak into the interior, it is from the sunroof, not from the window. Most people think it's from the window, and it's not. I've had cars come here, they say, my window leaks, my window leaks. I said, why do you say that? I said, I got water in the floorboard. I said, well, let's take a look and see what's going on. So right in the driveway, it doesn't take much to just get a cup of water. It doesn't even take a gallon of water, about a cup of water, and I go to the right side and I pour it in there and I see if it drips on the ground. And I go to the left side, do the same thing. What we find out, usually one side drips and the other side doesn't. And we say, well, this is what we need to fix first. And once we fix that, then we can see if this takes care of it. But we see this happen quite often, and people kind of pull their hair out and, they take it to a glass shop and say, hey, my window is leaking, and they put it in. So the insurance company gets stuck with the bill of putting a new glass in it, and that doesn't solve the problem. They get a crack in the windshield. I need a crack in the windshield. Let me go get new glass. They'll fix the leak in the windshield. No, that's not where it's at. It's normally in the sunroof. Very, very common problem. Easy to figure out, but that's what's wrong with it. If it is leaking, if it is clogged up, a lot of times you can just blow it out with compressed air. And if that doesn't clear it up and you have any leaks in the inside, even if it's you pour water and it doesn't drip on the ground, but it leaks on the inside, you're going to have to pull the headliner down, at least a part of it down on the side that is leaking, and follow the tube down, the drain tube from the sunroof down where it goes. And when you pull it apart, you'll normally see it's come apart. If that's what's happening, the rubber's gotten and the plastics is separated. You just got to add a little bit more hose to it to take care of the problem. Pretty common solution to a pretty common problem out there. Leaks, that's one of the major things we've seen over the years. Now, I have a lot of people say, I get leaks in my trunk. And I go, you get leaks in your trunk? Yeah, my spare tire fills up with water. And I go, well, normally when we see a spare tire fill up with water, it's because we're creating a low pressure system in the back, which is what happens. And we usually have a tail light that's not sealing properly, and that low pressure system sucks water in. And so what we do, we go back into the vehicle and we take a water hose and we get inside the trunk and we put a water hose around it, and we put, it's water hose coming out under pressure, and we're seeing if anything wicks in, because remember, there's a vacuum, a low pressure system. As you drive down the road, the rear of the car creates a kind of a low pressure system which allows water to be sucked into the car. I mean, if you got a tail light that's broken, you know what I'm talking about, because it'll suck water into it and you're going down the highway. And we see this happen on cars that don't have broken taillights. But what happens is they'll say they have a light bulb that's been replaced, and they didn't quite put it all together right and tighten down the little nuts on the weather stripping to make sure it's sealed up correctly. And then the next thing you know, the customer, it's rainy season because, the weather out there, we're well aware of that. And then the next thing you know, he's got a trunk that's got 6 inches of water in it. They look at it, they can't find a leak. They drain the water out of the out of the trunk, they get everything dried out, and they look, they don't see anything leaking. I mean, they take a water hose and gently put over the top of it, and it's not going to show up unless you forcibly put water around the taillights. That's normally where we see it coming from. Normally we don't see it around the trunk seal. We really don't. It's the same way to check a trunk seal. You check a door seal by using a dollar bill and slipping in there and see if you can pull it out, and it has some slight pull. If that's the case, nope, that's not where your leak is. Normally it's not around the seal. Normally if we find it in the spare tire or in the left or right wheel well, it's from the tail light. That's normally where we see it. Now, sometimes it can actually come from the sunroof. Don't see it very often, but I have seen it happen where the back seat gets full of water and it migrates to the back, and it's from the sunroof. Not as common as it is seeing in the front floorboard, but it can happen. But if you do have water leaks, the first place to check, if you have a sunroof, is the sunroof itself. Is it draining? That's the very first place to check if you have water leaks. The second place to check is the windows themselves, the front window and the rear window. And you need to be able to have someone inside the car or in the trunk, with a flashlight, that they trust you'll let them out again, and they take water under pressure and go around the window. And go around the taillights, go around that really, really good. I mean, high pressure water, go around it. If anything's leaking with that 65 pounds of pressure that's coming out of city water or your well, it's going to show up. That's what you want to look for. Now, I've had some people say, I can't quite figure out, I know I got a leak, but it's in the back there. I think it's my taillights. I'm not sure. I've had some people say, well, how do you find out if it is? Well, here's the old way we did it years ago. We take baby powder and we put baby powder around the taillight assembly, stick it back together again, and the baby powder, if there's a water leak, will wash away, and you'll see where the baby powder has gone away. That's one of those old little tricks. Baby powder, years ago, I learned it working on old cars back in the 60s and 70s. That's what we used to do. In the same process you could do today, but to find out if you have a leak just by doing that little around the tail lights, and you can do the same thing around the trunk. You can put baby powder around it. Now, here's another way out there. If you got a smoke machine, you can actually smoke a car and get it to see where smoke is coming out of. We've actually taken a smoke machine, a portable smoke machine, put it in the trunk of a car, put a battery in there, hooked it up to the battery, and filled the car up with smoke. Yeah, that's right. It's an inert smoke that doesn't have a smell to it. All it is baby oil. That's what it is. It's baby oil that's been heated up and it smokes. And we put that inside there in the trunk, and we can see where any smoke comes out of the tail lights or comes out of the rear glass or out of the trunk hatch itself. That's how you can find a leak. Those are 3 good ways you can find one: with a water hose, with baby powder, and with a smoke machine. Those are ways of being able to figure out where your leak is. But rear trunk leaks can be a little bit tricky because, like I said, they will suck water in. It won't let water pour. You can sit in the driveway and get rained on and water won't come in. It's when it's going down the highway. That's why trunks are a little bit more difficult to figure out where the leaks are. Front windshields and sunroofs are quite easy to kind of figure out where they're coming from, because that's about the only 2 places they're going to come from. They're going to come from where the windshield is sealed, and a lot of times we see that happen on Fords, where it actually causes the car to do really weird things, like maybe it won't start, maybe the wipers come on, weird things, because it gets the body control module wet and shorts it out, and can cause it to run the battery down, can just cause a multitude of problems. Very common problem on Ford Expeditions and Explorers over the years. We found where water will leak down to the windshield and get on what they call the GEM module, or body control module. Those things, making lights do really weird things. And that's one of the leaks area, but most leaks are front. If you have a sunroof, number 1 place to start. If you have a water coming into your car, check the sunroof, pull it back, take a cup of water and go to the right corner and put it in it and see if it drains on the ground. Do the same thing on the left side. If the water doesn't drain readily out, it takes a long time for that cup of water to get out of there. It's slightly clogged up, and you need to go ahead and take compressed air and blow it out. That's the way I would do it. Matter of fact, when you take your car in for your biannual checkup, most people come in twice a year to have their car checked up, and mention it to the shop. Most shops will be more than happy while they're doing it to blow it out with a compressed air, or to get the leaves out of it. When cars come into our shop, we blow all the leaves out between the cowl, between the engine and the windshield, because we see that often. They'll just be completely full of leaves, and customers don't know about it, and that's what causes a lot of things to rust and to make water stay in the car, and just not really good. That needs to be cleaned out of there. Just good preventive maintenance. And the same thing happens on those sunroofs. They get trash from leaves, and you'd be surprised what they get in there. It's a very common problem, a very common area to fail is right there. It's in the sunroof, and the only way to correct it, like I said, is to blow it out, or take a little bit of water, make sure that's what's going on, and if it is clogged, blow them out. And if that doesn't solve it, I've seen sometimes where I'll blow them out and I'll blow it apart. I have to take the sunroof back off again. The headliner off and put it back together and make sure it's right. But that does happen. But please start first at the sunroof. If you have a water intrusion into your vehicle, in the front of the vehicle, that's where you start. Even if you got one in the back seat. I've seen that in the back seat where it goes in the front seat then runs to the back. A lot of people don't realize it. It'll run down to the front and run to the back. All right, this is James Morris. We'll be right back. I don't know who's calling, but someone's calling. We'll be right back. This is with Ask the Master Auto Technician. Fall is here. Kids are in school. Holidays are around the corner. Time to visit friends and family. Give us a call, 850-763-0555 for your free AAA safety inspection.
We fix it right, guaranteed. Beep, 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 yeah.
If you want the best deal in town for tires, you need to call Baytown Tires at 873-8900.
Hanson and the guys at Baytown Tires take pride in serving Panama City for over 20 years. Baytown Tires on Highway 98 in St. Andrews. All service work backed by a nationwide warranty.
Water is too powerful to fight alone. Mr. Router Plumbing. Sink, shower, and toilet emergency drain services.
Part of what I'd like to let you know is what we do and how we work our system. Basically, we've got about 700 stocking dealers scattered around the 15 counties here in the Big Bend area of the state. I run a fleet of trucks, vans, and what we call hotshot vehicles to deliver to our dealers quickly so they can help service you as fast and efficiently as they can. Provide timely and efficient service, and we're there to take care of our dealers, who in turn can take care of their customers.
All right, welcome back to our show. James called from Port St. Joe over there, and he said he liked my show. I couldn't hit the right button. I'm running a little short-handed this morning, and I didn't hit the right button, so I talked to him off air, but he said I give some pretty good advice there, and I really know what I'm talking about on cars. And he says a lot of mechanics don't give out advice anymore. And I don't know why they don't, because everything's on the internet. Think about it. I mean, if you have a question, you can ask Siri or Google or whatever, and you can pretty well find it. YouTube. So the information's out there. Just a lot of people don't know where to look for it. But, you know, there's information. I mean, whether it's how to change your brake fluid or how to change your coolant. I mean, these things out there. I mean, I have some people say, well, I can change my own coolant. Yeah, you can. But you're only going to change about a quarter of it. That's all you're going to change. You know, you got 4 gallons in a system. If you got a V6 engine or a V8 engine, or even a 4-cylinder, you have about 4 gallons. Most cars have about 3.5 to 4.5 gallons of coolant, whether it's a 4-cylinder or an 8-cylinder. Diesels are the exception, they're more. And if you say, I'm going to change my own coolant, and you can go to the internet and they'll say, okay, you can lower the bottom hose and put a 50-50 mixture in there and put it back together again. And you've done a drain and fill is what you've done. What you've done is you've refreshed. It's like changing the transmission fluid by just dropping 3 or 4 quarts of transmission fluid and filter and putting 3 or 4 quarts of fluid back in it and a filter, and that's, you've refreshed the fluid. Not always the best thing to do. Not always the best thing to do about coolant either. If you do a drain and fill, you're lucky to change 1 quarter or 1 gallon. Of the coolant inside there. So that means you got 3/4 of nasty, weak, neglected coolant inside there. In order to do it correctly, you need to have it exchanged, and how that works is this. You heat the car up. The car is at operating temperature. You've got a machine hooked up to the outlet hose of the car, whether it's the upper hose or lower hose, it doesn't really matter. Cars are different. And as the car heats up, the thermostat opens up, the old nasty fluid goes in the machine, and the fresh fluid comes in. And you have 4 gallons of coolant in the machine, and you have 4 gallons of coolant in the car, old coolant. So as the 4 gallons of old coolant go in the machine, the 4 gallons of new coolant go into the car. So you change 99% of it. I can't say we changed 100% of it, because I'm sure there's a few molecules of old coolant in there, but very, very little. And that's how you change coolant correctly. Same thing on transmission fluid. I was talking about rejuvenating the transmission fluid. Some people call that. That can almost be the kiss of death to some transmissions out there. Just by changing a few quarts of fluid. Give an example. I had a car that came in here from a shop, a fleet service we work on. Had the transmission rebuilt 4 years ago, or 45,000 miles ago. That's all they put on it, but they do a lot of towing with it. The transmission fluid was, I mean, black as my boots. Now, they shifted good, but black as my boots. I mean, they were black. I mean, it's not supposed to be red. And I told the customer, I said, here's what I need to do. I need to go in there and change your fluid and filter, because the car is working okay, it's shifting all the gears good. You're telling me every so often it doesn't seem to shift right, is what your complaint is. And I said, the only way I can guarantee that it's going to stay working like it's supposed to is change all the fluid and make sure I got all the fluid nice and clean. And I said, this transmission holds around 14 quarts of fluid. I'm going to change fluid till I get it where I can see it's red and not black anymore. 27 quarts of fluid later, I got it where the fluid was nice and clean again there. It took me 27 quarts over 2 cases. There's 12 bottles to a case, so there's 2 cases, you know, it's 24, so 3 more. That's how much it took before we got it. Now, before we got the fluid clean. Now, we did this, and that was been 6 weeks ago. And we call the customer, man, it's never shifted so good. Hard to believe, isn't it? And yet you'll have people out there tell you, if your fluid is dark and ugly, don't change the fluid. You're making it worse. Well, they're partially right. If you just change 3 or 4 quarts of fluid, yep, you're going to screw up the transmission. Because, give you an idea. You've got 4 quarts, 5 quarts, 6 quarts, a really good transmission fluid that cleans, and it'll scrub it just clean as can be inside there, along with another 10 quarts of nasty fluid. So it's like having dirty dishwashing, you know, you're washing dishes and you got suds inside there and it gets dirty and your suds go away, and you put a couple more squirts of soap inside there and now you got suds back. Did the water get any cleaner? No. Did the suds come back? Yeah. What those suds do, it allowed you to clean the rest of the dishes that came in there, to wash them. Well, the same thing happens in your transmission. Those 4 or 5 quarts of fluid get in there and they'll scrub every little thing out of there, trying to lubricate and doing what it's supposed to do. And now we got everything that was attached in suspension, And now we got overloaded transmission fluid that's going to, well, you're going to have problems. So that's why I'm going to say, if you're going to change your transmission fluid, or you're going to change your coolant, or you're going to change your brake fluid, or even if you change any fluid, don't just change part of it, change all of it. It's like, I'm just amazed how many people out there don't believe in changing all the transmission fluid. There's videos on there telling people that, oh, you shouldn't change transmission fluid completely. I'm sitting there going, where did they come up with this? I'm just amazed. I don't know how many transmissions we've saved, literally saved, by changing the fluid and the filter, completely changing the fluid and filter. I mean, I'm talking about cars that come in here that when the car is cold, you put it in gear and it won't move. The customer says, I have to let the car warm up for 10 minutes for it to move. I go, really? The filter's so clogged up, the fluid's so thick it won't go through it. I mean, something like that. And if you got dirty, thick fluid and you put a filter in it and only put 4 or 5 quarts in there, it's not going to be very long before that filter's clogged up. And now you got a transmission that's in worse shape. So if you're doing transmission service, you change all the fluid, and most people can't do that. If you're one of those type people that say, well, I'm not going to pay a shop to do this. Okay, fine. You're not going to pay a shop. Here's what you're going to have to do. First off, go buy you about 1.5 cases of transmission fluid. Then find the outlet, one of the hoses that comes off the transmission that goes to your cooler on your transmission. Hook up a connection where when you fire the car up, the fluid is pumped out. And you make sure that you're putting fluid in. This is a 2-person operation if you're going to do it like this. You're going to start it up and shut it off. Start it up and shut it off. What you do is you drain the fluid out, fill fluid back in it. You drain the fluid out manually, drain it out, remove the pan, whatever you have to do. Fill it back up to proper level, start the car up, pump that fluid. Don't let it go empty. Just pump about 3 or 4 quarts in, shut the car off, fill it back up with 3 or 4 quarts, bring it back to the level, fire it back up. Do this till you get through all 20, whatever it is, 15 to 20 quarts of fluid. And it'll do it. It'll take you a while, and it's going to be a big mess, but that's the only way I know how to get the fluid out, is to exchange all the fluid. And the only way to do it is either pull the transmission apart in little bitty pieces, which ain't worth the trouble, or pump it out as you're pumping it in. Now, like I said, you can do it without a machine, but it's a big mess. I recommend having someone help you do it, where you can start and stop and start and stop and start and stop. You can do it. It's not easy, but it can be done. And I've never seen anyone successfully getting away with doing coolant. I've had people start and stop and start and try to do it, get it hot, add it, get it hot, add it. We had a guy that took him 8 gallons of coolant to do what we could have done in 2 gallons with 2 gallons of water, total of 4 gallons. But he had a total of 8 gallons of coolant, so he took 4 gallons of antifreeze, 4 gallons of distilled water before he was able to completely exchange the coolant out of it, where he thought it were, and he checked that the pH was right, the reserve alkalinity was right, and the concentration was right. It took him 8 gallons, and it said it took him half a day to do it. Well, we do it in about 4 gallons in about an hour. Because if you got the equipment, it's not hard to do. Too many people say, well, I just don't understand why it's got to be done that way. We never did it that way before. We always just did a drain and fill. Well, back then you had brass copper radiators that weighed 100 pounds. They could take a lot of abuse. We didn't worry too much about it because the engines weren't running 195, 225 degrees. They were running 180, 160 degrees. You know, the engines didn't last but 100,000 miles either. At 50 to 75,000 miles in the 70s and 80s, you were getting rid of your car. Now we have cars that go 500,000 miles. They run 200 degrees plus. And if you want them to last that long, you want everything to do like it's supposed to, you've got to change your fluids. You just can't get by willy-nilly going, I'll change it next year. No, I have people that come in here with diesels, and I look them right in the eye and I said, I've just done $3,000 worth of work by putting a oil cooler on here and an EGR cooler, and you are going to use cetane booster, and you're going to change your coolant every 2 years or every 20,000 miles. And they look at me and go, if that'll save me from having to spend $3,000 to $4,000, I'll be in here every 2 years, every 20,000 miles, change my coolant. On these diesels, if you don't change the coolant right and do a complete exchange on it, you're an open invitation to having more headaches than you can possibly imagine, especially with a Power Stroke diesel. Not as bad on some of the other diesels out there as far as cavitation, as far as electrolysis, and as far as things breaking down. but it still goes every 2 years, every 20,000 miles on coolant on today's diesels is very, 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 very important. I can't stress the importance of it, and using the right kind of fluid, not just any antifreeze. It has to be specific to that vehicle, like whether it takes a Ford Orange or Ford Gold, or whether it takes Duramax takes Dexcool, or Chrysler takes the extended life, the 10-year or the 5-year. It all depends on what year, make, model that it calls for. There is no one universal antifreeze for all out there. I have about, I don't want to exaggerate, I have at least 30 different types of antifreeze in the back, from Audis to Mercedes to Volkswagens to Toyotas. They're all different. Every manufacturer, and what we do is have about 30 of the most common fluids that, we got Mercedes, we got Honda, we got Toyota, we got Volkswagen, we got all those fluids in here. They're very common cars. They come in here all the time. But I have people all the time that have these cars, and they'll go by XYZ parts store and buy Prestone green antifreeze, and they'll stick it in their car, and they don't think anything about it till they have a problem, which is usually in about 6 months to a year. The water pump starts to leak, or a head gasket starts using water, or something happens because you have competing technologies inside that radiator that work at different ways, at different materials, at different metallurgy that you've got. That car was designed to take care of the metals in that cooling system, and the plastics and the alloys. And you put in a coolant that's not designed to protect those alloys and those things inside there, those plastics. And next thing you know, you ain't got any plastics in there. They're all eaten up. And those plastics are what hold the O-rings. And next thing you know, you got a serious leak. It could be an intake leak. It could be a head gasket leak. Toyotas were notorious for that years ago because of the wrong type of silicon that was being used. That's right. Hard to believe that silicon can affect coolant. Yeah, there's a lot of chemistry involved in cars out there. It's nothing like it was years ago. You just can't put any kind of part, any kind of place on there. Things have changed, and if you're in the automotive repair industry, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't been around cars in the last few years, you have no idea what I'm talking about. But today's cars are nothing more than computers on 4 wheels that require attention, almost as much on the electronic parts as anything out there. Most people never bother to check to see if there's a reprogramming on their car. They just take it to a shop and say it doesn't shift right and whatever, or it doesn't do this right, and the shop doesn't check either. Then all of a sudden they still spend all this money and it doesn't get fixed. Then they take it to a shop that does drivability studies, and the first thing they do after they get all the information out of it, they see if there's any reprogramming on it. They pull it up and go, look, here's the solution right here. Reprogram it, 45 minutes to an hour later, the problem solved. No parts changed, just moving electrons to the internet. That's the most amazing thing I've ever seen about cars. Hey, this is James Morris. Thanks for watching our show. Thanks for being a part of Ask the Master Auto Technician over the years, and we hope to be back tomorrow morning. Bye-bye, everybody. Fall is here. Kids are in school. Holidays are around the corner. Time to visit friends and family. Give us a call, 850-763-0555 for your free AAA safety inspection.
We fix it right, guaranteed. Beep, 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 yeah.
Scout is going through a stage. She loves to flush her toys down the toilet. So when the toilet backed up, I called my mom and said, help. She said, call Mr. Reuter Plumbing. Mr. Reuter showed up on time. They were courteous and professional, nice and neat, and did a great job. I can see why people refer Mr. Reuter. Now it's my turn. Call Mr. Reuter.